Hi, I wanted to do 10 don'ts for borrowers today. So this is my top 10 as of right now. I could probably do 20, but I stopped at 10. So this is Robin with Kell Processing, and let's get into it. Number one, don't buy a car or get any new revolving or installment debt during the transaction. Once your loan officer has pulled your credit, do not do anything with your credit unless you run it through your loan officer first. You can use existing credit cards, but don't increase the balances like huge amounts. Just do your normal thing, but don't get any new credit or inquiries. You might have an inquiry pulled for things like insurance or utilities, and that's okay. But do not have any inquiry pulls for things like cars, house furniture, or anything else that you want to do to the house after you purchase it. Wait till later. If your car breaks down and you need a new one, or it gets into a wreck and you need a new one, that's okay. Talk to your loan officer before you get into the new debt, making sure that the payment isn't going to hurt your file. This is usually okay because most people have a car that they're paying on, and this is just going to replace that debt because we're going to show that other debt paid off by your insurance company. But do not get any new debt without running it past your loan officer first. That's number one. Number two, do not give us a credit card for the appraisal order on the property that you're trying to buy and have it decline. If there's money in it, it should clear. If there isn't, get money in it before you authorize us to use it. If it's a debit card, make sure it's a card that is tied to an account with the money in it. If it's a credit card, make sure you have room on that credit limit for the appraisal order. There's nothing worse than trying to order the appraisal when we're on a clock to get you closed and find out that the card declined. It also looks really, really bad when you're wanting somebody to loan you money. So make sure you give us a good credit card for the appraisal order, verifications of employment, or anything else in the transaction that's needed. Make sure the credit card is good. That's number two. Number three, don't quit your job in the middle of the transaction, because it's going to cause a whole lot of problems. If you can stay there till after the closing, great. If you absolutely have to change jobs in the middle of the transaction, talk to your loan officer first. Let them know it's coming up. Let them get the new salary or offer letter to make sure that we're still going to be good with your qualifying ratios. If you lose your job and you weren't anticipating it, that happens, unfortunately. But if that does happen, talk to your loan officer immediately. Do not wait. Do not hide it. Do not think that you can just get past the closing and nothing will come up. And tell your spouse. If you got a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, make sure they know. I say this because we had a transaction where the guy went to closing because the lender was able to let us sign the documents while they were working on the final verification of employment. And yes, they are going to call your job the day of or the day before closing and make sure that you're still employed. Don't think that they're not going to, because they will. They tried to call this employer. They couldn't get him on Thursday. They couldn't get him on Friday. Finally, Monday morning came around. Keep in mind, everybody signed at the transaction on Thursday, and we were just trying to fund the file. Come to find out, the guy had lost his job some time ago. The worst part was when the loan officer called the borrower, he got the wife and told the wife what was going on because he assumed that she knew, and she did not. For whatever reason, her husband neglected to tell her that he had not been working. I don't know where he was going when he was supposed to be going to work, but he sure as heck wasn't going to the employer. So don't think you can hide those things. It ain't gonna work. Sorry. That's number three. Number four, overdraft protection. I get that it's there for you and you got more than one account or you're willing to pay the fee. That's all well and good during the regular time of your life, but not whenever you're getting a mortgage. It shows financial irresponsibility to have overdrafts, even if you have overdraft protection, even if you have money in another account. The lender is not going to want to see that. Now, in most cases, maybe it'll just be a letter of explanation why it happened and it will be okay. But if you have got a file that already has some other difficulties, things like that can turn it around to where the lender does not want to approve you for that loan, and they are within their rights to do so. So make sure you do not have any overdrafts in the transaction. Number five, don't deposit cash into your bank account. I did a whole nother video on assets talking about this kind of stuff and what kind of deposits are acceptable and which ones aren't, but cash is not acceptable. So the lender doesn't know where the cash came from. It cannot be traced. It cannot be sourced. So cash is not the way you want to go. Do not put cash in your bank account. Small little cash deposits will probably go under the radar without any problems. $500, $600, maybe even up to $1,000. But large deposits vary based on your income and the sales price. So what's considered a large deposit on one file would be considered a small deposit on another file. And if you get above that amount, you're going to run the risk that is going to be questioned. And if it is questioned and it finds out that it's cash and you cannot document it, they're going to take that amount right off your balance for what is acceptable in the transaction for your funds to close. You do not want to find out that you're short funds to close because you deposited cash. If in doubt, use your cash for everyday items, for going to the gas station, for going to the store to get groceries, to pay for anything else that you do while you're going out, eating, whatever it is. Use that for your everyday stuff. Do not put that into your file for your transaction unless it is very, very small increments throughout a long period that may not be questioned by the lender. So cash is a definite no-go, especially in large amounts. Number 6, don't move money between accounts unless you have to liquidate it, say out of a 401k or stocks or something along those lines where you have to put it liquid into your checking or savings. If you have multiple checking and savings accounts, once you take application, don't continue to move your money around. The problem is that if the lender needs an update on one account and then they see transfers from another account, then they're going to want this account updated. And then you've got another account and then another account. And then it just keeps going on. So once you have made a mortgage application, leave your money where it is and tell your loan officer if you're going to be using non-liquid funds for the transaction so they can describe to you, or your processor, which is what I do, can describe to you how you have to document those assets and get them liquid in the account for closing. Number 8, this one's actually a little weird. It doesn't really have to do with the mortgage, but I want to put it in there just because my realtor brain tells me that this is important. I don't think that this comes up as much as what it used to, but do not make arrangements to move into a house before you own it. Your realtor might say it's a good idea. The other agent might say it's a good idea. They call it a temporary lease of the buyer. So you're actually moving into a property that you're trying to buy. You're going to lease it back from the seller until you close. They used to do this quite frequently back whenever I first started in real estate, but I can tell you from experience on some files that I've worked on, it's not a good idea. Even if you have to get out of your, say, apartment or whatever at the end of the month and you're going to be closing on the 5th, don't move into a property you don't own. If you have to put your stuff in storage for a few days, a week, a month, and go stay with family or whatever, because it's not going to be a good idea if you move in and then come to find out something happens and you can't close, because now you have to move all of your stuff out of that house and it just gets really, really ugly. So again, this doesn't come up that often, but I wanted to put it out there. Do not make arrangements to move into a property that you do not own yet. Number 9, don't lie or omit disclosing things like child support and past divorces. This is important. These things are typically going to come up. Your divorce decree may have some information on there that we have to disclose to the lender about old properties or autos, or again, children that are being factored in, and trying to address them after the fact can cause problems. Even if you don't get child support taken out of your check and you pay it directly, you think, oh, well, I don't have to tell them that I'm paying $400 a month or whatever for my children to my ex. That way I don't have to count that into my debt. It will come up somewhere. And if it doesn't, you're one of the very few that can slide through there. But typically it does. There's too many data search bases out there that the lender goes through to look for things with the same name or social security number or whatever in this state, other states. You just don't want to hide those kind of things and cause an issue later. So if you are divorced, if you have children, or alimony even, we don't have alimony that often in Texas, but it does exist, but other states have it much more often. You want to make sure that you disclose those things up front. Don't wait. And number 10, don't try to get a mortgage, especially a government loan such as FHA, VA, or USDA, while you owe the government money. It's not going to work. Now, the exception to this is IRS payment plans. If you are in a valid IRS payment plan and you've been in that IRS payment plan paying on it for at least 3 payment cycles, then you're probably okay as long as your debt to income ratio can accommodate that payment to the IRS. That's okay. That's an agreed payment plan. What I'm talking about is judgments, liens, tax liens, sales tax, property tax, all kinds of different things that could be in this state, in other states. Judgments for all kinds of things. Could be civil, Could be in this state, could be in other states. It doesn't matter. If it's out there, they're going to find it. You don't want to have those things hanging over your head. Back child support is another one. People have come and they're $20,000 in the arrears in child support. Now, if they are in a payment agreement for those child support arrears and that payment agreement is documented and the payment is okay for the debt to income ratio, then you're probably going to be okay with that, like the IRS. But if you're just not paying your child support and there's a lien or a notice on your credit report, you're not going to be able to get your mortgage. And the last one that I can think of that always seems to come around and bite people in the butt is back student loan debt. I actually had a gentleman, this was probably about 10 years ago. He got bad CAVRs. CAVRs is a system that the federal government uses for FHA and VAs to see if you owe the government any money from any kind of sources. There's several different codes. I can't even go into all of them. But anyways, this guy came up with bad CAVRs. And we called the federal government to the FHA division of HUD and found out that it was for a student loan debt from like the late 80s. This guy had been paying on it with his IRS refunds every year. They were just taking his refund until eventually he would pay it off. Now, fortunately, whenever we went to him, he said he did know of it. He knew that the balance was getting down because he'd been paying on it for so long, and that he could go ahead and pay it off in full. He didn't think that it would matter because they had just been taking his tax refund every single year. But the bottom line was it was still a bad debt to the government. So why would the government loan you more money if you already owed them money? So those debts have to be rectified before you're going to be able to close. And a lot of times they come up on the conventional side too, but more importantly on the government side. So don't ask the government to loan you money if you already owe them bad debts. So that was number 10. And so hopefully you found that useful. Next, I'm going to do some loan officer don'ts. So this should be fun. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.